Welcome to Beyond the Numbers, the podcast where we take the stress out of business finance and break down the numbers in a way that actually makes sense. Today's episode is about one of the biggest risks to small businesses, over-reliance on one big client. If one client accounts for too much of your revenue, you're building your business on shaky ground. We'll explore how to reduce that risk and create a more stable, profitable future. So reliance on one makes for a wobbly place to be. Imagine your business as a table with one client acting as the foundation. What happens if that leg is pulled out? The whole thing collapses. So the dangers of over-relying on one client means that a major income gap can occur if they leave. It also means we've got reduced bargaining power. You are at the mercy on pricing and payment terms. And any late payments from them or contract changes can cause financial chaos. So if one client leaving would cripple your business, it's time to rethink your strategy. So I once worked with a business where 60% of their revenue came from one client. And when that client downsized, the business struggled to survive. Things to consider, maybe to make sure that contracts are robust and safeguard against a sudden client exit. Maybe there's a 3-month notice period. And also, that gives you time then to forecast forwards, work out some other strategy plans. Regularly assess the risk of clients leaving and also the impact of losing them on your cash flow. Establish ongoing communication and feedback loops with clients to spot potential risks early. And build reserves if you are reliant on a few larger clients so that you have an emergency fund and buffer. Now, it's not something we want to consider. However, if your big client does leave unexpectedly, it's essential to act immediately. You need to quickly assess your financial situation and forecast your cash flow. Start to identify cost-saving measures, and this may include difficult decisions like redundancies. Communicate promptly and transparently with your team about changes, and really focus marketing and sales efforts aggressively on those quick win opportunities. A client who lost their largest contract immediately adjusted their cost structure, which sadly meant reducing their workforce temporarily. Difficult as it was, this swift action stabilised cash flow, ensuring long-term survival. The key here is acting fast and decisively helps protect your business in a crisis. Now let's talk about what a healthy revenue mix is. Ideally, no single client should account for more than 20% of your income. But many small businesses have one client making up 40, 50, 60, or even 70%, so you won't be alone if you're thinking that's you. Now, a balanced revenue mix provides stability, so if one client leaves, your business remains strong, and having multiple streams of income to protect that cash flow. I worked with a business that had increased their profit by 30% in 1 year, but guess what? Their profit had actually dropped because they took on too many low-margin clients. They were working harder for less money. So let's look at an example if you have a business at $1 million turnover and 70% of the income is made up by one client. So now taking your total income of £1 million, if your largest client is 70%, that means you've got £700,000 of income from this one client alone. Now, if we're trying to get to that 20% figure, that means that we've got to get to an incredible £3.5 million. Now, really, that's not going to be realistic. So actually, we need to look at other ways to stop this reliance on just this one customer rather than generating additional income. Now, some of that may be to look at some of the product lines and the gross margins that we're delivering to this client here and consider whether actually that's contributing to our profit margins or not. So would you rather have 10 clients contributing 10% each to your revenue or one client contributing 90%? One gives you stability, the other puts you at constant risk. So how can you build a strong pipeline? You need to consistently generate leads. Don't wait until a big client leaves. Diversify your income streams and start looking at different products or services. And make sure you strengthen your marketing efforts. Stay visible even when you're busy. A business that relied on one big client started introducing a subscription model. Within a year, they had multiple smaller revenue streams and no longer depended on one big customer. Building a pipeline takes time, but it protects your business long term. Now, the over-reliance doesn't just relate to customers. This isn't just about clients. Being overly dependent on one supplier, one key team member, or one marketing channel creates the same risk. That's where John Warlow relates to the Switzerland structure. One client, you need to start diversifying your customer base. One supplier, you need to have backup vendors in case of shortages. And one team member, there could be different ways to either cross-train staff and document processes. And lead sources will spread your marketing efforts across multiple channels. So if one thing can take down your business, you need to build a backup plan. So how can we look to retain and reduce reliance on employees? Now, there's different ways to do this. So for retention, some of the options could be to look at share option schemes, long-term incentive programs and bonuses, looking at flexible hours, extra holidays, even to training opportunities and development opportunities. And ways to actually reduce the reliance on them is to implement cross-training, looking at automating some of those easier things, and document your version of the Vibrant Way. The next thing up is suppliers. If the supplier went out of business, then if it would cause a major impact, you need to look at diversifying. No one supplier should dominate. Now, next episode, we look at the one-page plan every business owner needs, keeping you on track and keeping overwhelm at bay.